Close your eyes and imagine the horizon, not as a line where the sky meets the sea, but as a spine, a cold, scaled and rhythmic ridge of bone and muscle that stretches for thousands of miles. Beneath the crashing waves of the North Sea, something is breathing. It is not a fish. It is not a whale. It is a coil, a circle of ancient malice that binds our very world together. The Vikings called him the Midgard Serpent. The gods called him their greatest mistake, and the prophecy calls him the end of all things. When he stirs, the earth trembles. When he wakes, the oceans boil. And when he finally lets go of his own tail, the world as we know it will die in a flood of venom. Welcome back to Legends from the Dark Myth. Today, we descend into the crushing depths to face the ultimate outsider, Jörmungandr. To understand the monster, we must first understand the bloodline. In the dark, frozen realm of Jotunheim, the trickster god Loki coupled with the giantess Angrboda. From this union, 3 nightmares were born. There was Hel, a girl whose half-dead face chilled the blood of the living. There was Fenrir, a wolf whose hunger would eventually swallow the sun. And then there was the second child, Jörmungandr. In those early days, Jormungandr was not yet the world-girdling titan we know today. He was a serpent, small enough for a god to hold, but even then his eyes held a terrifying intelligence. He didn't hiss, he watched. He didn't strike, he waited. The Aesir gods in Asgard were not blind. They saw the shadows these 3 children cast over the future. Odin, the All-Father. I sat upon his high throne and saw the threads of fate, the Norns, weaving a tapestry of fire and blood. He saw that these children of Loki would be the architects of the god's destruction. Fear is a powerful motivator, even for a god. Odin ordered the children to be brought to Asgard. Hel was cast into the underworld. Fenrir was bound with magical chains. But for the serpent, Odin chose a different fate. He took the writhing, slick body of Jörmungandr and hurled him with all his divine strength into the vast, freezing ocean that surrounds Midgard, the realm of men. Odin believed the sea would swallow the problem. He believed the depths would drown the prophecy. He was wrong. Down Jörmungandr sank, into the dark, silent abyss where the light of the sun is a forgotten memory. But the serpent did not die. He thrived. In the crushing pressure of the deep, he began to grow. He fed on the ancient things that dwell in the silt, and as he fed, he expanded. He grew longer than the greatest longships. He grew thicker than the oldest oaks. He grew until his body spanned the width of the great sea. Eventually, the serpent completed his journey. His head met his tail. To save himself from the endless hunger of his own growth, he bit down. He became the Ouroboros, the living ring that holds the world together. Imagine the psychological horror of his existence.
We're going under.
For centuries, Jörmungandr lay in the silt, his eyes fixed on the darkness, holding the weight of the continents on his back. And he became the Midgard Serpent, the silent observer of human history. Every storm at sea, every unexplained tidal wave was merely Jörmungandr shifting his weight or a slight tightening of his grip. He was the prisoner of the world, but he was also its anchor. If he were ever to let go, the land would slide into the sea. And so the world lived in a state of fragile peace, held together by the jaws of a monster that hated the gods who put him there. If Jörmungandr had a mortal enemy, it was Thor, the god of thunder. Thor represented order, strength, and the protection of humanity. Jörmungandr represented the chaotic, untamable wild. Their fates were knotted together long before they ever met. The most famous encounter between the two began not on a battlefield, but on a fishing boat. Thor, disguised as a young man, went fishing with a giant named Hymir. Thor was restless, seeking a challenge that could test his legendary strength. He insisted they row far out, past the usual fishing grounds, past the safety of the shallows and into the deep water where no man dared to go. Hymir was terrified, but Thor did not care. For bait, Thor had decapitated the largest ox in Hymir's herd. He fixed the massive head onto a hook forged for giants and cast it into the black water. Down it went, up past the schools of cod, past the leviathans of the deep, until it bumped against the nose of the World Serpent himself. Jörmungandr, who had not tasted fresh meat in an eternity, opened his massive jaws and swallowed the hook. The ocean exploded. The boat rocked so violently that Hymir fell to his knees. Thor stood tall, his feet planting so firmly through the bottom of the boat that they touched the seabed. He pulled with the strength of the mountains. Slowly, agonizingly, the water began to churn with foam and venom. And then it rose. The head of Jörmungandr broke the surface, a mountain of scales, eyes the size of shields, dripping with the black sludge of the abyss. Thor reached for his hammer, Mjolnir. He was ready to end the prophecy right there, but Hymir, paralyzed by the sight of the world ender, he pulled out his knife and cut the line. The serpent sank back into the depths like a falling star. The chance was gone. As Jörmungandr disappeared into the darkness, his eyes remained fixed on Thor. It wasn't just a retreat, it was a promise. There was another time Thor met the serpent, though he didn't know it at the time. This is the story of the fortress of Utgard Loki, a place of giants and illusions. The giant king challenged Thor to a series of tests. One of them seemed simple. Lift my cat from the floor. Thor, the strongest of the gods, stepped forward to lift a large grey cat. He strained, he heaved. His muscles threatened to burst, but no matter how hard he pulled, he could only manage to lift one of the cat's paws off the ground. Thor was humiliated. Only later did the giant king reveal the truth. The cat was an illusion. Thor had not been lifting a feline. He had been lifting Jörmungandr himself. By lifting even one paw, Thor had stretched the serpent so far that he had nearly reached the sky. The giants had watched in terror, for if Thor had succeeded, the foundations of the universe would have snapped. Even in disguise, the serpent was a weight that even the gods could barely move. All myths must come to an end. For the Norse, that end is Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods. The prophecy tells us that Ragnarök begins with a winter that never ends. The Fimbul winter. As the world freezes and humanity descends into war, the bonds of the universe will fray. Jörmungandr, after eons of silent waiting, will finally experience a rage that cannot be contained. He will let go of his tail. The movement will be catastrophic. The oceans will surge over the land as the serpent rises from the depths. He will not come alone. He will join his brother Fenrir and the giants in a final march against Asgard. On the field of Vigrid, the final battle will commence. The sky will split and the earth will moan. Thor will ride out to meet his ancient foe for the last time. This is not a battle of swords and shields, or it is a battle of elements. Jörmungandr will spray his venom into the air, poisoning the very atmosphere, turning the seas into acid. Thor will strike with lightning that shatters the firmament. The god of thunder will finally achieve his goal. With a blow that echoes through every realm, Mjolnir will crush the skull of the Midgard Serpent. The beast that shackled the world will fall dead, its massive body creating new mountain ranges as it hits the earth. But victory comes at a price. Thor will turn to walk away, but the serpent's venom is already in his blood. He will take 1 step, 2, 3. On his 9th step, the strongest of the gods will collapse and die. The serpent and the god, the shackle and the hammer, they were born to destroy each other, and in doing so, they allow the old world to pass away so a new one can be born from the ashes. Jörmungandr is more than just a giant snake in a story. He represents the things we cannot control, the vast dark forces of nature that surround our small islands of civilization. He is the reminder that everything is connected, and that sometimes the very things that hold our world together are the things that will eventually tear it
Constantly
apart.
beware the hidden,
Next time you
ancient,
stand by the
dangerous
ocean
things that
and look out at
eternally
the
lurk
vast
just
grey
out of
horizon,
sight in the mortal
remember the
world.
Midgard Serpent. He is still there, in the deep, holding his tail, waiting for the winter that never ends. If you enjoyed this journey into the dark myths, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. We have many more legends to uncover. Until next time, keep one eye on the shadows and the other on the deep.